All right, welcome back to Dentistry's on Fire. And today I'm super excited. I've got a great friend of mine, Dr. Leonard Tau. He's not only been a great friend, but he's also helped me over the years with a lot with reputation management. We're going to get into that today. We're also going to talk about the difference between that and reputation marketing. We're going to talk about what he's up to now with Supercharge. And I'm just excited to have you. So, Len, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Jeff.
Man, yeah, Len's such a great guy. He's one of these guys that's just got one of the biggest hearts. He really wants people to win inside of dentistry. And so I'm super excited to have you on as a guest. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited too. I always like to do these. I have my own podcast, but I like to be a guest on podcasts because I like to drop pearls of wisdom that they can take back to their practice immediately. So
Absolutely.
I'm excited for a conversation.
Absolutely. And that's one of the goals today is let's get out some great nuggets before. So let's do this though. Let's go back to, let's see, you've been practicing since like the late 90s. You said, I think 99, right? And you bought and rebranded the Pennsylvania Center for Dental Excellence, right? Tell us about that. Like, what did that look like? How did you rebrand that? And then we'll start to get into the rest.
Well, I'll just give you a quick. So I graduated school in 1999 at Tufts. I went to my residency program in Southern Jersey through an AGD.
Okay.
Now through what's called Rutgers. It was UMDNJ, and I ended up doing some private practice in Jersey, and I ended up getting married to a woman from Philadelphia, and we went back to her hometown in Lansdale, and I got a job at an office, a group practice. It was myself and two other doctors, high end fee for service practice. I mean, it was great. And awesome. I was there from basically 2000 to 2007. So the dentist, Dr. Donald Katz, unfortunately passed away in January of 2007, and I bought his practice in March of 2007. And it was in Northeast Philadelphia. It was bought under very extraordinary circumstances. I like to say the doctor was gone, which is always a tough situation. I figured the team originally, when I met them, a lot of them were going to leave, but I wasn't going to buy the practice because without the team and without the doctors, there wasn't much of a practice left at that point. But they decided to stay, which allowed me to purchase the practice. And I assured them that I would make it where, and the doctor didn't die in the practice, but he was there for many years. And I assured them that the practice would look nothing like it when I was done with it. So we purchased the building as well as the practice, and we started the renovation, I think in July of 2007. And we redid the entire practice. It was very old inside, and I made it, at that time, it was very modern. It was exactly what I had dreamed up. You close your eyes and you think about what you want a practice to look like. That's what it looked like. And I always like to say that I had the practice of my dreams, but I wasn't living the life of my dreams. I was working my butt off. People think, running a dentistry is the easy part. It's running the business is the hard part. And I was working more on the business than I was in clinical practice, because we were only working, and this was consistent throughout my entire career, we were only working like 25 hours per week. Right. Monday 9 to 5, Tuesday, Thursday 12 to 8, and Wednesday 9 to 1. That was it. And no Fridays, no Saturdays. And so that was kind of what we did. And I went to where everybody went to for advice. I went to Dental Town. Yeah. And I got advice because Facebook didn't exist back then. Right. And I asked the gurus out there, who should I use for marketing? And those are the people that I used. And they did a decent job, but I didn't see any real big acceleration. And I was in debt. I was in debt a lot of money. I had a lot of debt service every month. It was close to, I think it was $18,000 a month, pretty close to it.
Plus, did you have student loans too on top of that?
No, granted, I didn't have student loans. So that was a big advantage that was probably the only thing I like to say I was given in life. My parents gave me my education. Everything else I really worked for, but my education was something that they provided to me. So I had zero student loans when I came out of school, which allowed me to do a lot of things.
That's great,
I guess you can say. But I went to the gurus, hired them, and like I said, I didn't see a really big acceleration in number of new patients. So I started to say, let me try some things on my own. And they wanted me to do billboards, and they wanted me to do yellow pages, all the old school traditional stuff, right? Magazines, newspapers. And I was like, this doesn't look like where I want to be. And I said, I think I want to start doing some internet marketing. And I started doing it on my own. Yes, I had a website, I had an SEO company, but I tried different things. And, that got me, I guess, the local dentist interested in what I had to say, because I started to grow my practice significantly. But the one thing that really, really started hitting home was that I started to get a few reviews online, and that's how patients were finding me.
I was just going to ask, how did you go from being just a dentist to like now the reviews guy authority, right? How did that happen? Walk us through that.
Well, I started realizing how important reviews were, and I started to make it a really important thing that I would start requesting. And back then, things were different. Please trust me. I mean, you were able to
Sure.
incentivize patients. You can literally have a patient do a review in your physical computer.
Right.
You go to a computer, they log into Google, they can leave the review. There was no, this is way back. This is the OG times. I mean, this is
Yes.
like, and I steadily started getting reviews. And there was a product called Demandforce, and Demandforce was a practice management, communication software. And my tagline for them was they put you on the map. And because at that time, any third party review would still show up in Google.
Yes.
And so, I mean, literally dentists at that point could get, thousands of Google reviews because Demandforce was showing in there. And then Demandforce and Google differed, and Demandforce got dropped from Google. And all of those dentists who had 1,800 reviews all of a sudden had none. Zero overnight. I still remember when it happened. And I think I had about 50 of them on my own. And then patients started coming in and saying, "Hey, I found you online." I'm like, "What drove you?" "Oh, you had the most reviews." And something just kind of clicked in my head that this was a common scenario. And this was very, very early. And again, I started getting the local dentists really were interested in how I was getting so many patients coming into the practice.
Sure.
So I was asked by a local dentist in Villanova to do a study club session, first speaking engagement I ever did. And he said, "Let's teach the other dentists how you're marketing your practice." And I still have that presentation I did. And it was obviously things that some of them don't exist anymore.
Right.
But the one thing that stood the test of time was how important reviews were. And it was interesting because in 2010 was really when I started to speak a lot. So, 15, almost 16 years ago.
Right.
And one of the largest seminar I did, I remember I got a call from a dentist in the back. And I said, "Dude, you're amazing. The stuff you're teaching me is spectacular. I wanna hire you as a consultant." I'm like, "Come again?" He goes, "I want to hire you." I'm like, "Nah, I'm literally a couple years into my practice."
Right.
And I'm like, no can do. But when I started speaking for Invisalign, I started to get more people requesting it and inquiring about it. And, I said, "You know what? If there's an interest, I'm going to create something." So I created a consulting company called iSocial Dental Consulting. Something off the iPad, iPod, those types of things.
Yes.
And I started working with some practices. It was very short-term consulting, but I would give them a marketing plan and they would hopefully implement it. I wasn't going to implement, but I would make suggestions, and I had a nice number of clients. But I did not. I still don't like the consulting model. I don't like long-term consulting. I like short little. I give you advice, you take it. You implement. We go from there.
Well, and I'm a firm believer in that too. Even with the guys that I coach and consult with, like I believe a great coach and a great consultant is not going to have them rely on you forever. Like they should be able to learn the material. They should be able to learn the frameworks. They should be able to implement them and really accelerate in life and then move on. That's the ideal scenario that we can look at creating. One of the things that you said, like even going back to like even your first talk and everything, I want to touch back on that. Like, I want to go back to like, what do you think is one belief that you had about marketing and reviews that 10 or plus years ago that you've completely changed your mind about today?
Well, back then I thought that you needed to be everywhere in order to be, and that was literally you had to be found everywhere. And now I truly believe that if you are not visible and dominate Google, then you're not. That's the most place. Now that's the only place you need to be, in my opinion. Obviously, AI agents are changing things and how people search for dentists. But if you're not visible on Google, you are invisible, and that's the truth.
That's the truth.
It's very hard to find you if Google doesn't want to show you online. Yeah, you can be in radio ads, you can do TV, you can do all these other traditional marketing magazines still. But if you're not on Google and visible on Google and you don't have a lot of reviews, you're just not going to bring the patients into the practice anymore.
And if you think about it, what's amazing, like now, even like all of our social media, even our captions that we put in there, all of that is now searchable by Google, which is wild. So Google is still
Google stood the test of time, and the reviews have stood the test of time. So this was going back real quick. This was back in 2010, 11, and 12. And I'm like, you know what? I don't love the consulting, but I want to find another way to make money outside of dentistry. And I had an idea because I was trying to get as many reviews as possible. And I was lucky enough to find the right person to team up with, and we created a small little piece of software called iSocial Reviews that helped myself and my colleagues get reviews easier from patients, because the products out there were just not very good.
Right.
And this is literally the end of 2012. And we created, like I said, a little piece of software. And I went to my first trade show in 2013. I went to Yankee Dental meeting. I called them up on the phone and said, "Hey, I've got no money. Just give me remnant space." I like to call, if you go to these meetings,
Right.
where the bamboo sheets are and the Cutco knives and those things are.
The farthest corner.
The farthest corner. Just stick
no
me there.
No light or anything.
Yep. And the guy who had been helping me with marketing created the booth for me, and I still have pictures of it. It was all words. I mean, it was over wordy for what something should be at the booth. But things were different back then. And I set up at Yankee Dental, and I had 9 dentists buy my software, and I'm like, okay, well, something's here. And so I could continue on that road. I went to Chicago Midwinter. I went to AACD, which were only a couple months later. And after the first 18 months, I had 220 dentists using my software. And it was a combination of, obviously, people I knew, but going to these shows and speaking.
Right.
And then I got the awareness about Birdeye. Birdeye reached out to me about an article I'd written in Dental Tau magazine, which is why Yelp is not good for your dental practice. And they told me they were interested in my software, what I consider selling to them. And I was like, no, just kind of wrote it off. And then I realized I really couldn't, because I was still practicing dentistry. I couldn't control, or I couldn't grow the business because I was focused on my dental practice still. And so I sold my company in 2014 to Birdeye. Birdeye acquired me, acquired my company, acquired my ideas and the review process. And, now it's 11 years later, and we went from 220 offices to over 11,000 practices now. So
that's just a small gap.
yeah. So it's been an interesting run for me. Obviously, I went from, full-time practicing dentist through 2017. I brought in my first associate because I went to a part-time dentist in 2017.
Yes.
Had to go full-time again because she left in 2020, right as COVID was hitting. So I went full-time for a couple of months again, hired a new associate in 2020 who eventually bought my practice in 21. And I retired from dentistry in December of 22. So just about 3 years ago in a couple of days.
I want you guys to hear this, because that is the life of an entrepreneur, from the aspect that, like, things happen. And just like Glenn said, hey, the associate after COVID left, and like, hey, I've got to step back in full time. Did you want to do that? And probably not necessarily, but it's what's required. And as a leader, as an owner, as a business operator, that is what's required as we go through our practice. There's all this on social media in which you see, and it's like, oh, I should be able to work, 1 or 2 days a week. And that should be my complete lifestyle. Not having to look at putting in any of the hustle, not having to put in any of the grind. And the funny thing is, you go back, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, over to our parents' time, hustle and grind was just the norm. And that's part of what made the work ethic a good possibility. And I don't care who you are, how successful you are, there is a point in time where you've had to put in that hustle. You've had to put in that grind. You've had to earn it. And many late nights, many times where you've sacrificed things. But at the same time, if you can find ways not to lose yourself in it, that's what I think is required nowadays of great leaders. And so those are the opportunities that we can start to shift to. I want to go back to the moment when you realized, Len, like, if I don't figure out this online reviews thing, and was there ever a point where you thought, if I don't figure this out, that my practice is going to be capped?
No, because I was always really good at transitioning and finding
innovating
and finding things to do. And it was still being a hard worker. And obviously I knew, obviously reviews were not the only thing I was doing, but that was where things kind of blew up. I still remember I think it was back in 2010 when things really turned the corner, a couple of years after I bought the practice. And I started, producing and bringing in a ton of patients. And, we were doing about $2.5 million a year in my heyday, was 2010, 11, and 12, really, from a clinical practice.
And that's a big deal back then.
Especially. Yeah. I only had one hygienist, and I had three dental assistants and one front desk person. I mean, that's what we were operating, really, really well.
And how many operatories at that?
The total of 5. 3 I worked out of, and 2 hygiene ops.
I want you guys to hear that, because you don't need to have the huge Taj Mahal. You don't. You can have a 5 operatory practice. You can even have a 4 operatory practice and be super successful. if you know how to manage it, if you know how to structure it right, if you know how to schedule right, if you know how to communicate right, if you know how to create the patient experience, that is part of the journey that you're taking people on. And the big part of that is also your reputation, your marketing. All these aspects start to come into a very integral play. So
I agree with you 100%. I think the one aspect that I think is a little bit overlooked, and I started speaking about it and incorporating it into my seminars that I give, it was the customer service aspect of it, the patient experience part of it, because
yes.
that is what people were really hyped up about. And I was even early adopter in things I did because I wanted to make sure patients talked about their experiences.
What
I
was
still,
something that you did that stands out to you that created that? Just something very simple that can create an outstanding patient experience.
Well, so it's funny you brought that up because I was just going to tell you. So I still remember in dental school when they told us that if we can learn to give a painless needle, patients would flock to the office. And I learned that obviously very early in my dental career.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I need to figure this out because that's, patients would talk about that. And I knew they would talk about it. And it's funny when I bought the practice, one of the first things, one of the people in the office said, this is the way the former doctor did it. And patients raved about the reviews, raved about the needles. I'm like, oh, okay, well, tell me what they did. And I learned to perfect that technique. And I basically learned how to give painless needles. And I don't teach clinical dentistry at all now. I'm very on the marketing and business side. But the one clinical tip I do give during my sessions now is how to really give a painless needle. And it stood the test of time. And the way I know is I used to get a ton of complaints about my oral surgeon. He was a fabulous surgeon, but his needles sucked.
Right.
And that's because they put people to sleep. But if you're not sleeping, their needles are not comfortable.
Exactly.
And I said, I want you to try this. And I showed it to him and he basically started using that. And then the patients did the same thing. It's a painless needle, which is great to hear. But it's very easy. It's actually you have to use a compound called Profound Gel.
Okay.
It's very easy to find at a compounding pharmacy. You put Profound Gel on the tissue, leave it in for a minute, take the cotton roll out so it doesn't fluff the tissue, and you inject with 1 carpule 4% Sit-Nest plain.
Seatness. Yep.
Yep.
That's exactly what I do first.
Yep. When you use Sit-Nest plain,
Doesn't
it's a
burn.
neutral pH. There's no burn because they don't really feel the pinch because it's the burn that they don't like.
Yes.
And then once that initial injection is, they feel no burn, and obviously they don't feel a pinch either. You follow it up with 1 carpule, whatever else you want to use, whether it's Septicane or lidocaine, and the patients, they basically, that was it. I didn't feel anything, and that's it. So that is a proven technique that so many people don't use.
That's funny that you do that because we've been using that forever as well.
Yep.
and I didn't know that you did that as well. So this is great.
Yeah. So that's a lost art still is customer experience. And so when I now give seminars, I talk about prior to the reviews is how to create these raving patients that want to talk about you online. It's the simple things in the practice that they pay attention to, saying hello and goodbye to patients.
Yes.
Mentioning them by their name they want to be called, apologizing for running late, offering them the small things like paraffin wax for their hands. We had at the time created a comfort menu, things that we wanted to offer them if they wanted it. So blankets and pillows. And at the time it was iPods to listen to music. That's what we had back then. And I would customize the music based on the type of music they liked. And when they sat in the chair, it would say, Jeff's playlist. Those are the things that patient appreciated. And it was a personalized approach we took. And again, I still think that there's a little bit of a lost art in that. But patients really appreciated that. And they told their friends and family. And I saw a survey once that said American Express believes that if you treat patients or family and friends and patients the way they want to be treated, they will pay anything for treatment. They will see the value and they pay for it. And that's the honest to God truth. And my fees, I was fee for service. I was probably in the 85th and 90th percentile on fees. And I had really great case acceptance still.
Yes.
Because I treated them well and I showed them the value. And that's kind of how that was the stepping stones for being successful in practice.
I will tell you, and I'll echo that. It's funny because we're fee for service in our practice. We always have been. And the funny thing is, and we do a lot of full arch dentistry, whether it be FMR. I do a lot of full arch right now in my practice. For me, I only do implants. And what's funny to me is still having very high case acceptance around even the first day of presentation. And what I really hear again and again and again, time and time again from patients is like, we knew that you were going to be more expensive, but the reason that I chose to have my dentistry done here with you is because you guys made us feel like family. I love hearing that. And that just tells you that you're operating in a way that you create connection, you create relationship, and most of which what Len was just talking about doesn't really cost anything. Maybe the paraffin and the wax, yes. But once you like buy, at that time it was the iPod and everything, then there's really not an expense. Like, for example, it's creating how patients love to feel. And they love to feel, honored. They like to feel respected. They want to know that they've been heard and that they've been seen. And I also think celebrated. Like, one thing that we do that I came up with several years ago is when you finish a smile, whether it be through aligners or cosmetic dentistry, FMR, or our implant patients, once we deliver the smile and everything, we send out a little pop-up message to all the team members that are free. And we've got a big team. I mean, like, gosh, we've got like 23 people, but all the team members that are free will come in the hallway. I'll take a picture with the patient, and then we call it the smile gauntlet. And so as the patient walks out, the team and everybody claps it up for them. They always get a little extra pep in the step, and they'll click their heels together. I've seen a couple times. I mean, or do a little spin. Guess what? That's free. That's free, but it's letting them feel celebrated. And so these are the things, like you said, Len, it's a lost art, but if you can just take the time to do that, and it doesn't require a lot of time, but that's the thing that patients remember. They remember that they were celebrated. They remember that they were valued, that they didn't just feel like another number, right?
I always like to say you want to make the patient feel important.
100%.
And there's a reason why, if you think about it, there's a reason why you use certain brands. Like, I am American Airlines. I mean, I very rarely take another flight unless I'm forced to, because American will roll out the red carpet for me. They'll treat me like I'm, important. And I like that. I only use Marriott, same thing, unless I'm forced to use another hotel chain. That's what I like. And you become loyal.
Yes, you do.
And when you're loyal, what do? You recommend other people to use the same services, and you explain the experiences that you have. And hopefully other people want to take your advice and use those same services. Same exact thing applies in the dental industry. When you have loyal patients that talk about you to their friends and family, those are the ones that are going to talk about you online as well. And you need to take advantage of that. And that's really where this all came from. I
agree. Len, when you hear a dentist say, or who still thinks, well, I get plenty of referrals, what are they missing about how patients actually choose today?
Hey, referrals are great. Word of mouth is great. I like to call it word of mouth 2.0, because ultimately, when somebody is referred to you, they no longer just pick up the phone and call the office. Okay. Yeah. One is they have to look the number up. Okay. And generally you don't get sent, a lot of times you get the name of the dentist, and then they're going to try to find the number. They're going to look you up online. And if you don't put your best foot forward and look amazing online, the patient may have second thoughts. And the same thing happened when I was referring patients to specialists. Certain of my specialists were obviously on the bandwagon with me with reviews, and they got a lot of the referrals. And specifically my endodontic practice that I referred to, they did not look very good online, and they really didn't care because they were busy. But 50% of the time I referred to them, they would want to go somewhere else. And it's the same thing when you get referred from a friend or family member of a patient. They're going to look you up online. And if you do not look that good, patients may have second thoughts. And I always like to say you're only as good as Google says you are.
Listen to that, 15%. That's a big deal. And that's just out of your practice.
Correct. Right? Those are ones I referred.
That you referred.
Right. And they were like, I don't know about this. Do you have someone else? Because they still look online. So even if you're a heavily referral based practice and you're busy, you don't know what you're losing. And that's the problem. Okay. There's an oral surgery practice somewhere in Florida. I'm not going to mention where they are, but they're somewhere in Florida, and they have like 6 practices, and they look horrible online. And they told me they're busy. And I'm like, that's great, but you probably would be busier if you had a better reputation online. So you really need to understand that that's literally the way that people are going to decide whether they come in or not. There's something that was brought up by Google in 2011, and it's called the ZMOT. Okay. The ZMOT is the zero moment of truth. And you can look it up. It's an amazing study back in 2011. And I used to teach about this. It was a fascinating study. And there was a specific moment in time when someone decides to do some research on whether they want to, and it could be buying a refrigerator, it doesn't matter. And they start doing their research, and you need to be within that zero moment of truth, or they're not even going to think about you anymore. So the reviews are really part of the zero moment of truth, even back then, and even more important now. I always like to say that no matter what you do in life, you go to the movies, you go to look at Rotten Tomatoes to see what people are saying about the reviews.
Absolutely.
You go to a restaurant, you may go to Yelp. I mean, Yelp is still popular for restaurants. If you buy an Amazon product, there's so many products, you're still gonna buy the ones that stand out, the editor's choice, the highly rated ones versus the ones that are, less rated. So
Right.
everything we do in our lives revolves around this reputation. And that is something that will continue to the test of times. And if you look forward, if you go advance or go further down the road and you look at how these AI agents are deciding who to refer to, who to recommend, they're big time looking at reviews. So reviews,
Absolutely.
I hate to say it, I got very lucky and I picked the one thing that has stood the test of time and is still even more important than it was, 15 years ago, and will continue to be important. That's why. So going back to your question, that's how I became into this review space, and it's still growing day by day. How many people need reviews for their practice, and it never will stop. So
Well, and then you wrote the book, right? Raving Patients, right?
correct.
And so the
My brand is
definitive,
raving patients.
yeah, the definitive guide to reputation marketing to attract hundreds of new patients, right?
Correct.
And so talk to us about what is reputation marketing versus reputation management? Like define what's the difference between those.
So reputation management was, and I say was because you really shouldn't be doing it anymore. Reputation management was really worrying about the negative reviews that you were getting, if you were getting them, and making sure they were as invisible as possible, like pushing them down the first page, just making sure you didn't see them. And that was what was done in the past. And if you are talking to a marketing company and they say that we do reputation management, I would just hang up the phone. That is such an
Good point.
old school term. And I kind of created that reputation marketing term because I wanted you to generate 5-star reviews from your patients and then use them to generate more new patients. And that's what reputation marketing is. It's really using the power of your patients to get more patients coming into the practice. And if you take that philosophy and you create what I call a reputation culture in your office, and what I mean by reputation culture is your team, yourself all know that you've got these patients coming in. When they leave the practice, they're going to get a survey, a review request, which could be a survey that's grading you or evaluating your performance. And if you put your best foot forward, that's the reputation culture in the practice. And when you bring that into the practice and then obviously focus on getting reviews and marketing the reviews, it changes how you appear online. And overall, you're going to increase the number of new patients that you have.
Absolutely. And you began to touch on this just a minute ago, but where do you see the AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and AI driven search? How do you see that either colliding with reviews or supporting reviews and with SEO? Like, what do you see over the next, say, 3 to 5 years regarding that?
Well, there's so many people using these AI agents to search for things. I use ChatGPT every single day. It's amazing what it does for me. It knows who I am now, and it uses my voice when I ask it to do something.
Right?
It just makes my life a little simpler. But when you ask an AI agent, who's the best dentist or who's the most highly recommended dentist that I should see, and I'm looking for this, this, and this, it's using user-generated content. So Reddit has become hugely popular because there's a lot of user-generated content there. So if you look at the sources, when these AI agents give you suggestions, it will give you a source. Look at what sources are, and you want to fill that source with information, as much information as possible. So people talking about you on Reddit or you posting a dental question and put your office name in there, people are going to talk about that. That helps you. Reviews are hugely popular with these AI agents, and they'll refer to them directly in there. This office is highly respected, blah, 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 within these AI agents. And this is what people are saying about them. And they will put snippets about, hey, he does Invisalign. That's why I want reviews that mention your procedures that you do. Someone's going to look up Invisalign. They're going to look up veneers. You need that in your review, in the reviews from the patients. So I think it's only going to get more important with these AI agents with reviews for your practice. It's literally never been more important that you focus on these things, because if not, you are going to lose out in search, because it's not in 2, 3, 4 years from now. I'm not sure how many people are going to be going to these, typing into Google, dentist near me.
Yeah. I mean, they're having conversations with AI, like, hey, who's the best dentist in my area? I mean, that's, that's the conversations that are being had. Right.
Yes,
And,
correct.
and so listen, for the dentists listening, Len, you've seen hundreds of practices wasting thousands of dollars a month on postcards, SEO, retainers, random ads. Like, listen, for the average dentist, where do you think they're literally lighting money on fire inside of their marketing right now?
So, look, I'm not a fan of traditional marketing. If you track traditional marketing well and you know it's working for you, continue to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where I think you have to be very careful now is how much you're putting into Google AdWords. I think Google AdWords over time is going to be a thing of the past to some
Less
extent.
and
I
less
think
relevant.
less relevant would be a better term. So I think if you're throwing money into Google AdWords, again, you have to be tracking it. You have to know it's working for you, because if you're just doing it and not sure, you're probably not getting results. So I think that's where people are throwing a lot of money down the drains into. And honestly, I hate to say it, I think you need to consider dropping some insurance companies.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And what I tell people all the time, and they look at me like I'm crazy, is if you were to drop insurance, remember when you take insurance and you're a network doctor, you are accepting a lower fee by 35 to 40% potentially. Okay.
That is a form of marketing, by the way.
Correct. That's the form of marketing you're doing. You're taking a lower
Yes.
fee to bring patients into your practice. That's marketing. It should be a marketing expense. What I would rather you do is take 50% of your write-off. So let's say you do $400,000 right. Take $200,000 and put it into marketing over the year and get out of insurance. And you will work less, you will make more money, and you will feel better about yourself and provide better treatment, in my opinion. But people don't want to spend the money. That's the problem. They'd rather take the write-off and have the money in the pocket than spend the money to. And so I wish that we as an organization or an industry can convince our other fellow doctors to do the same thing. I unfortunately went into insurance because I brought an associate in 2017 who wanted to be in insurance. So my insurance was half fee for service and half insurance, and it mucked things up big time. And I would never recommend anybody go and do that again because it was not good for my practice.
I have an interesting story about that too. Like in my Granbury Dental Center, where I practice, Bruce Baird and I practiced together for 17 years. We were always fee for service. I opened up a scratch practice 52 miles away. And inside that, just ran it as an associate driven model. And I did have plans and everything over there at first. And then I remember I just got so fed up with it because I was doing marketing and I was taking plans. I'd have people come in and they say, "Oh my gosh, I saw you from your marketing. You guys look amazing." And, "Oh gosh, great, I'm on your plan." So I'm just shooting myself in the foot, right? Yep. And I made the decision. I did not do it the right way, but I was pissed off. I just dropped everything at once. And I remember my associate, he was freaking out. He was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to starve this month." I said, "Mark my words. You will make more money. I promise you." And literally that month, he made more money than he'd made in the past. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't believe it at first, but now that I've seen it," and it shifted his belief. And I think that's also one of the most important things. And, I think that when you're sitting there and you're taking a 30 to 40% haircut on your fees, it's an easy way to start to really get burned out. It really is. And I couldn't agree with you more. And for the dentist that's listening that is feeling burned out or worried about overhead or knows that their online presence is weak, Len, what would you say? What's the first small move that you tell them to make? Really, I would even say in the next 7 days. Like, what is the first move that you would say, "Hey, if you're feeling that way, this is what I would do"?
Well, I think you have to look, if you're unsure if things are working, it's probably not working for you. So I think one of the things they can do is just reevaluate the total spend on marketing, reevaluate the results they're getting. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to have ROI. If it's not ROI, you have to start peeling away things that you don't think are working. But a lot of people don't understand or don't know if it's working or not. So you need to reach out to someone who can assist you, like an unbiased person, someone who's not trying to sell you services. "Hey, right. Can you review my marketing with me?" And I do it for people all the time. It's a limited expense. It's not expensive, but it takes me a week or two, and I tell them, "Hey, looks like it's working and this is not." And I make recommendations to how to improve it. So I think that's one thing is to do, is just make sure you're not overspending on something that is not working. Okay. Reputation should be at a big, big part of your, alertness, but even more important than reviews now is visibility. And you need to focus on visibility online, because there's been this misconception over the years that if you have a ton of reviews, you're always going to rank. And that's not the case. So I think you need to pay attention to the visibility factor as well. But I think that's it. I think it's establish a culture in the office. Start asking for reviews if you haven't done it yet. even more important than the number of reviews is what we call the velocity of reviews, which is how often the reviews are coming in. So you have to have a consistent flow of reviews. And what's going to happen is look, I work for Birdeye. This is not a Birdeye pitch at all. But if you use a service that gets reviews and then you drop it because you think you have enough and you have no replacement for that, you will drop in rankings. 100% so.
Yes. 100%.
Unless you maintain that consistent flow of reviews, that is a big, big no-no. And I tell people, look, when someone cancels at Birdeye, it doesn't hurt me. It hurts the company, it doesn't hurt me. I don't own the company. I'm an employee. But I tell them, I said, I'm warning you that if you don't find a replacement that does it equally well, you will drop in rankings. And then they call me 3 months later and said, I need to come back because I'm like, why? They go, because I dropped in rankings and I'm not seeing as much reviews coming in. So just keep that in mind. I think those are the big things they have to pay attention to.
And I agree. And just to put some context to it, like inside of our practice, like we will put 8, sometimes 10% of our previous collections towards our marketing, towards our budget. A lot of practices might market around maybe 3% or so. That is a significant amount. And when you're producing so much, it's what allows you to actually attract the patients. And listen, we do all forms of marketing, and I do traditional marketing. We are actually still on the radio. We work with Dave Ramsey. We've worked with him, for like the last 15 years. And so we do a lot of different things. We're also on Google. We're also on social media. We also do some stuff in the local newspaper. And listen, I practice in a town of 7,000 people. And the great thing is we're right outside of Dallas, Fort Worth. I'm about 40 miles west and south of Fort Worth. And in order to attract the type of patients that I want to see, I have patients that drive all the time, way more than 50 miles away. So we actually put a couple billboards up going in and out of town that do say over half of our patients drive from more than 50 miles away. There's a reason. So a lot of it is also dependent upon, just like Len said, what works and what's working for you. The reason I know things work for us is because I know my numbers and I track them every month. And I'm actually tracking them bi-weekly, so I know what I can put the gas pedal down on and what I need to pull back on or where I need to reallocate some funds. That's the way that you can start to manage your marketing. And you're not just asking Sally at the front desk, like, how's the new implant ad going? You're looking at real true metrics, the facts that give you the answers. And so, go ahead, Len.
I was going to say one other thing. I think the other thing lacking is that dentists just don't in general have a great understanding of marketing itself. And that's why there's so many dentists that get taken advantage of by marketing companies that say they can do it and they don't do anything for them. And you hear the story every single day. You go onto Facebook, you read stories like that.
Yeah.
So I think, and I would impress upon people to do this is start taking an interest in learning about that business, that aspect of your business. Because if you're a well-informed consumer, people can't take advantage of you. But most dentists play dumb when it comes to that type of stuff because they're just drilling, filling, and billing. They're not worried about the other things. So it's part of running a business. And I think that's what makes dentistry a little bit difficult, or very difficult, is that you have so many different things you have to have your hand in. When I ask you, what your overhead is, or I ask you, how much do you write off, and you don't know those numbers right off the top of your head, or what your overhead is, that's a problem.
That's
and I think there's so many practitioners that are ignorant to that. And they go, I got to look at my software. I got to talk to my accountant. If you do not know your numbers like that, you're in trouble.
Yes.
I'm just going to say that right now. So you have to know your numbers, just like Shark Tank tells you that. You need to know your numbers. So I think that's a really big point, is you need to take a little bit of better understanding of what's going on in your actual office if you're truly running a business.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I look at my numbers every day, and then weekly I'm looking at, am I on track for the month, or am I above, or am I below? What do we need to do to shift things or to move something around? What has to happen in the schedule? All of these factors are the factors that allow us to win. And unless you track, if you are trying to figure out how did you do last month, you've already lost the game. If you're waiting to talk to your accountant, that's 6 weeks, 2 weeks into the next month to see how you did last month. You're going to be losing the game for sure. I want to switch gears here. So, because then you also run, Supercharge your dental practice, right? The events. Okay. I had the honor of being able to speak there this year with you, 2 years ago in Bermuda. That was awesome. And this year in Florida, which was excellent. Just share with the listeners, like, what's the problem that you're wanting to solve, in those rooms and that can't just be solved through software alone or a book.
So as I just said, I think that dentists need to be aware of the business and marketing side of a practice, but the majority of dentists do not feel comfortable in that aspect of it. And, I talk about one clinical thing, which is giving a painless injection. It has to go with the patient experience. I have no alignment with any clinical companies because I don't teach clinical dentistry. My entire focus is helping practices grow from a business and marketing standpoint. And that is how Supercharge was formed back in 2023. So our first event was in 2023 in South Florida. We moved it in 24 to Scottsdale. It's back in Florida permanently. It just was this past September. But it is a business and marketing meeting. If you come, you learn how to run a practice. You learn the nuances of leadership, of financial independence, how to make money, how to save money. That's the focus of the event. And obviously you spoke this year, Jeff. It's not like your typical, it's not a study club event that you go to. I mean, this is like a full-fledged big budget event. AV is huge. I mean, you were on stage, you know what it was like being there, but this is not your typical small study club. It's a big time event that is every year, the same year. It's going to be permanently in South Florida. But if you want to grow your practice from a business perspective, you want to learn how to market your practice, you want to connect with a lot of the new technologies out there. I had 52 vendors at the event.
That's what I was just going to ask is how many vendors were there? Because there was a ton and it was amazing.
Yeah, 52 vendors, all in different aspects. I mean, I had a couple of competitors there of each other, but in general, it's all aspects of AI. AI was a huge part of the events.
Yes.
You wanted someone to do your insurance. There was an insurance company to do insurance, every aspect of insurance. You want someone to handle receptionist AI that was there. You want someone for radiology was there. So
legal was there.
Yeah,
I mean, everything.
Every aspect of a business is covered. And that's what this event's about. And, I'm in the final stages of finishing the planning for 2026, which is September 25th through 27th. We changed it to a 3-day event this year for next year because the hotel, and Jeff, I mean, you travel a lot. The hotel is one of the nicest hotels.
Oh, it was amazing hotel, incredible, impeccable service. It was phenomenal.
Yeah. My wife and I went to the hotel in April of last year before my 24 event even took place. And it was still under massive construction. We walked in with hard hats. It was literally just a shell of what it was. And I saw the vision of the hotel and I said, this is where I want my meeting to be because it exudes everything I'm about. And
yes. That
is kind of how the meeting got pushed back to Florida and at this hotel. And I don't see myself leaving because I don't think I can find a better location. And it was a fabulous event. We had 233 registered attendees, 52 vendors that were there. And the feedback I got was great. And I'm looking forward to next year and really, obviously. And one thing different about my event is you'll never see the same speaker in 2 years in a row. And I tell all the speakers, you could be the best thing since sliced bread and you're just not going to come back the following year because that's what happens when you go to these events, these big events out there. It's the same speakers over and over and over again.
I agree.
And I think that's why big meetings are dying because you're going to see the same speakers. I want to see new speakers. I always bring someone new on that's barely spoken. When I hire them to speak, which is a year before the event or over a year before the event, they have almost no introduction to the dental industry. Now, after I hire them, they may get some dental introductions, but very frequently, there's someone on my stage that is very unknown to the dental industry.
And it's well set up and it sets up opportunities for you to not only learn about things that you want to have answers to, like Len talked about. There was every aspect of dentistry was covered, as well as AI, as well as marketing. And you have the opportunity to actually sit with vendors not in a pressurized way, but really there to help answer your questions, to actually see, hey, what do I actually need to look at putting into play inside of my practice? And having an opportunity to have that exposure to the different speakers and to the different vendors to really look at what's going to actually serve me the best inside of the practice that I can take home and put into play immediately. One of the things too, Len, is, you talked about Google and everything. What would be one marketing channel that you think is underrated for dentists as we go into 2026?
So, I mean, it's funny. There's not a lot of under the radar stuff. I would tell you that I think you have to have a major focus on AI. I mean, knowing what these AI agents are saying about you, knowing how many people are now using those as search engines. I think if I was focusing on the future, it would be to make sure I am as visible as possible on these AI agents. I think that's very underrated now because it's still brand new. Look, I hate to say it, I still think reviews are going to be still the driver to your practice,
I
but there
agree.
really isn't a whole lot. I mean, still, put your eggs in multiple baskets, try it out, see what works, pick the ones that are working, and throw more money in there because that's the fuel that will allow it to burn even better and bring in more new patients. So I think there's a company that I spoke to that are working with some dentists, and a budget is usually the issue because the budget is expensive to do, but they are very good at getting you into these AI agents and putting you at the top of those searches. I've seen some really, really great results in a very short period of time. But that to me would be the focus for now and the future, is making sure you have the visibility on these large language models. And you mentioned, Perplexity, ChatGPT, and those other agents, because
Yeah.
I think that's definitely the future.
Well, Len, man, you have been great. Thank you for a plethora of knowledge and some wisdom bombs today. So appreciate you. And where can people connect with you online or on Instagram, podcast? Give us how people can reach you or listen to you or get more information from you.
So I'm like the easiest person to get a hold of. You simply look me up online, you'll find me. So easiest place is my website is drlentau.com. You'll see ways to contact me. I'll give you the information anyway. If you have interest in learning more about Supercharge your dental practice, and I think we're rebranding it to just Supercharge, I think it's going to make it easier, because it was funny as I'm reading people posting, hey, I'm at Supercharge your dental office, I'm at Supercharge your practice. So Supercharge is just an easier way. So I think it's just going to be Supercharge moving forward, because you can supercharge anything. If I said I wanted to have a guy come in and talk about, losing weight, and you're supercharging your life,
Absolutely.
those types of things. So there's a lot of different variances there. But it's superchargeyourdentalpractice.com currently, which is probably going to remain there at least for the website. We are launching a new version of the website any day now. So I would say by the time this runs, the website will be up and running. But you can find out about next year's event at superchargeyourdentalpractice.com. drlentau.com is my website. My cell phone number, because it's all over the internet anyway, is 215-292-2100. My email is len@drlentau.com. I am Dr. Len Tau on all social channels. If you want to listen to my podcast, it's the Raving Patients podcast. I have a Facebook group called Raving Patients as well you can join. So that's really the easiest way to get a hold of me. But it's not hard to find me. Put it that way.
Len, I appreciate it. Len is one of the most giving individuals in our industry, and he really is setting things up so you have the best opportunity to win. So, Len, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciation for you, brother, and what you're doing inside of our profession. And thanks again, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.